All right. Hey, Lee, welcome to the Flipping Junkie podcast.
Hey, Danny, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm super pumped that you had some time to be on the show and share with everybody listening all your top secret ninja tricks that you've been using in Georgia.
Yeah, no promises I can't keep here, Danny.
Okay. Well, you shared a bunch of good stuff with me before this recording of this episode, so I'll wait till after we're done recording, and then I'll share all that stuff that you shared with me. If you don't mind. I'm just kidding. We share everything on the episode. We don't leave anything out. All right, Lisa, what I wanted to do first was just start with what got you interested in house flipping and this crazy business, and how how you took the leap to start doing stuff, taking action, and then doing what you've done. 34 deals so far in 2018. It's really impressive.
Yeah. So really it started for me. I was working a corporate job. I was in transportation and logistics. I was a manager at a trucking company. And a friend of mine from high school on Facebook was posting about, he was reading the 12-week year, and he was posting about his plans for the year. And he was going to buy 4 rental properties. And I knew he worked full time. I knew he had a wife and kids just like me. So I really didn't know how he was doing that. My understanding of what you could do in real estate was very limited. And so I reached out to him, and he shared some resources with me, and it was kind of down the rabbit hole from there. And then I found Bigger Pockets and started my investing career. I listened to a lot of podcasts, yours being one of them. Read a lot of books, listened to a lot of audiobooks, and bought my first investment property in August of 2016. Traditional 20% down, went to the bank, got a commercial loan from a local bank here. And it was a decent property. It was an off-market deal.
How'd you find it?
I found it through a flyer, like a classified paper at our local bank. I was in there, looked at it, and there was an ad for a triplex for sale in a decent area. And I ran the numbers quickly and said, there's potential here to look into it. So I called the guy up. He was moving out of state and ready to sell what he had. And,
wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, he actually taught me a lot. So he took me to the attorney. He took me to the bank. He kind of held my hand through a lot of that. And it was a good experience for me. I've since sold that property, but it was a good way to start. But once I got into it, I quickly realized I needed more capital to continue to invest the way that I knew how to invest. So I started to look at other options to generate more capital. Because my plan at the time was build up rental properties, slowly and steadily replace my income, and retire at some point. And the further I got into real estate investing, the quicker that exit strategy needed to be for me. I really enjoyed what I did, so I wanted to pursue that as aggressively as I could. So I looked at flipping, and I didn't have the capital because I'd already put it back into that investment property. So I looked at hard money, and then quickly realized in my area, our margins here aren't very large for flips and things. So to make the hard money work, I literally couldn't find a deal where the numbers made sense. And I looked for a few months. So
just because of the cost of the money, making it to where the deals were just too thin, right?
Correct. I found some expensive hard money. I mean, since then, I've got some better deals with private lenders and things that are a lot more user-friendly. But at the time, the numbers didn't make sense for all the extra costs and fees and everything else that they added into it. So there was just no way to make any money, or not without taking a necessary risk on a deal. So I looked at wholesaling. Actually, I found a wholesaling program that I joined, and that was the avenue I chose to go down. It was less money up front, and what that really taught me was how to find the best deals. That was what I realized, is that regardless of what I did, if I was doing rentals, if I was doing fix and flip, if I was going to wholesale, I had to find good deals. I had to find good off-market properties. And that taught me how to market. It taught me how to generate that part of the business. And I started doing that in the summer of 2017. And then I bought my first flip in August of 2017. And then I quit my job in October of 2017. Wow. So I jumped in full, completely jumped in and didn't really have a safety net. My wife's stay-at-home mom with her 2 kids. So she had her hands full there, and it was a challenge, but we've scrapped and we've hustled and we made it work, and we've just taken a lot of action. Really, is the only thing that we've done differently. But we'll talk about a little bit more how I've been able to do that. But once again, I listen to guys like you and Don Costa and Justin Williams. I mean, I knew that I was getting good advice from the right people, even if it wasn't firsthand experience and first-person communication. But I applied what you guys said. I applied what you guys, and I'm still learning. I'm still making mistakes, just like everybody today. Yeah. So we're getting there. But so here we are today. Like you said, 34 deals so far in 2018. Really ramped up the business in the spring of this year, around February, March, April. That's when we started doing a lot of marketing. And recently we've decided to change the way we market, so we can elaborate on that a little bit more later on.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's been a fun ride so far, and I'm looking forward to sharing a little bit more with you today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's an inspiring story because it hasn't been that long since you got started, and then most of the ramping up you said was into this year a little ways, and then now to be at 34, there's people that have plans, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong for people that have the plans to grow slower and like 5 deals this year, maybe 12 next year, maybe 20 something next year, maybe 30 something the following year. I want to find out how you did it. I want to get into the details of like what kind of, you said you took a lot of action, right? You had to, right? To be able to do that well. But what kind of action was it? How much, people can say it took a lot of action, but they just delegated and did some things, or you went out and did all the stuff. So we're going to get into all those things. I wanted to go back though to where you were talking about last year getting started, and ask you if there were any of the books that you read that were sort of that you got the most out of, or anything that kind of like you remember, a book that you read twice or something like that.
Oh, wow. Honestly, I can't think of one in particular getting started, because I listened to so many. I did Audible because I was in the car a lot. And now I've switched to trying to read more hard copy, which is a lot better in my opinion. But at the time I was doing Audible, so I listened to everything I could get my hands on. I just went through them as fast as I could. I mean, thousands of hours of audio books and podcasts. So
yeah, that's a great tip. Yeah. I mean, when did you listen to those? When did you have the time to do that? Were you doing it while you worked, or did you do it while you were driving, or?
Yeah, it was my commute mostly. I had a 30-minute commute every day, and then I also would drive around to meet with customers. So I would spend an average of, an hour and a half to 2 hours in the car, and I would just, no radio, just podcasts and audiobooks. That was all I listened to for over a year, and I still do today. So
yeah, no, that's cool. And finding out how you can possibly cover all that material in so much time. You were making time, right? Doing like hustling while you were waiting, or doing other things and making good use of your time. So let's move into that next part of it. The part that a lot of people struggle with is like you said, like coming up with the money, right? Finding enough, money to be able to do these deals. And especially if your plan was to have a bunch of rentals, you're going to tie up money for a long period of time. So, what did that look like? Where did you start with maybe avenues that you tried that maybe didn't work out, and which ones worked, and how did you come to where you were able to have enough capital to be able to do these deals?
The beginning, like I said, I had traditional bank financing, 20% down, just get a loan. That was the only thing I knew. And then I found out about hard money, listening to podcasts, things like that. So that's where I went next. I didn't have private money at the time because I didn't really know any lenders. I wasn't ingrained in the local market with other investors. That was just, I hadn't reached that part of the business yet. So what I did is I leveraged my relationships that I've made with other investors locally. I attended every REIA meeting I could. I got involved every way I could here locally in the real estate investor group here. And I built as many relationships as I could with people. And the way I brought value to them is when I found a friend of mine he was younger than me, had more units, more properties than me. He was doing better than I was if you look at measuring it off of scale. And I started talking with him, and he said, yeah, he had a banker, or a local small bank, and they were giving out much better loans and much better terms, and even zero down on some stuff. So I leveraged him. I said, hey, I've got this flip. If you can come in with me, I'll give you half of it, and you help me secure the financing. And that's what we did on our first few deals, he and I together, is I brought the deal, he brought the financing, and he had a good income also. So, W-2 as far as being able to show the financials to the bank to get approved, that was the easiest thing we could do. And it worked out well for a while. And we've had to since change our strategy a little bit more to go to more private money. But once again, I built that private money through networking, through, just building a good reputation. And, now I've never not had money for a deal I wanted to do, thankfully.
Wow. So the private, so you started with the bank loan, then you went to hard money and partnering with somebody that could get the money, and then to private money. So do you think it would have been possible for you to skip those initial loans and the initial deals you did and go straight to a private lender? Or do you feel like that experience had to be built up to where you had a track record?
That's a great question. I think definitely, I could have skipped it, but I don't know if I would have been ready for it at the time. You know how they say when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. I don't know even if it would have been right in front of me, if I would have been able to make that happen, or if I would have been worthy of putting it together just because of my lack of experience and knowledge. I don't know how I would have handled it, but everything happens for a reason. And
right.
And the things I went through, they weren't bad. They were just learning experiences. And as I progressed, I learned more and I learned more and I learned more. So,
yeah, it's a really good answer, because when people hear other people's success, even if it did happen somewhat quickly, relatively, and you hear, well, I had this private money. It's like, well, how come I can't just go straight to the private money? It's like, well, there's some things you got to learn, right? Like, you don't want to, take the private money and make a bad deal and end up losing money and having to pay this person back and have this problem. I think sometimes you do have to pay a little bit more up front, as long as the numbers still make sense. And it sounds like you would pass on deals where it didn't make sense, or try to get different ways to do the funding, like with the partnership. And I want to find out a little bit more about that partnership too, because I'm sure it wasn't just one conversation. The guy said, yeah, let's do it. What was that relationship like? Or was it just the fact that you had this deal and then it just became just about doing the deal?
So really it started out with awareness. And we were at the REIA meeting, and people were talking, and he started talking and explaining some of the things he was doing. And I instantly gravitated towards that. So he and I started talking outside of the meeting a little bit. And then we, that lasted for probably a couple months. It wasn't instantaneous. So we started talking, we networked, we started to build rapport with each other and some trust. And then, I approached him with a deal. Once I learned what he was doing, I said, well, hey, this is the challenge I have. This is the good things and the benefits that you have going for yourself, your business. How can we put those two together and then both come out and benefit? Because the philosophy I've always had, and I try to tell people, is I'd much rather have 50% of a good deal than 100% of no deal. And I've always been willing to share the wealth with people. I don't believe in competition. I believe in collaboration. And, I've done deals with probably 10 plus people in my local market because of that. And now I get people that come to me with deals. So I'm benefiting from what I used to do as a networker. I think they call them a super connector or something like that. I'm not saying I'm a super connector, but that's what I strive to do. I strive to be in the right place at the right time and just build opportunities for people and help people solve problems.
No, that's incredible. And when you were doing this, especially for the first ones, was it that you were saying, look, you get the funding, I'll take care of the deal, I'll take care of the fix up and the resale and all that kind of stuff. How did you guys share responsibility, or what responsibilities did you have and the other person have?
Yeah, so that's pretty much how it was. It was that I'll bring the deal. I wasn't spending a lot of marketing, so there wasn't a ton of cost there. I said, I'll bring the deal, you bring the financing, I'll manage the rehab. I would have him help whenever he could or whenever we needed. And we would split costs. Whoever put money in would get reimbursed, and then whatever profit was left over at closing, we would split 50-50. So that worked out well, and we're still doing deals like that today. It's just, you got to trust each other. I trust him, he trusts me. We've got a good relationship built. It wasn't just some guy I met on the street and didn't know. It's a guy who I know, I spend time with. I trust, I understand how he thinks and what his expectations are. And he's the same with me.
Yeah. Well, there might be people listening that say, well, man, that's an awful lot to give up, right? 50%. and the guy's not doing the work, you're doing the work. But what I'd say to that is, we started out the same way. We had, a mentor that was putting up the money, and then we were doing the deals and doing all the work. And what was great about that is we didn't have any risk, right? Like, obviously we didn't want things to go south or be screwed up. And, we treated it like our own money was in it. But there's a lot of, it relieves a lot of pressure off of you, I think, when you don't have that. Would you say the same thing?
Absolutely. I think you're spot on with that, Daniel. That's a great assessment. And exactly what the benefits were for me at the time is that, hey, I didn't have to put a lot of money in because I didn't have the capital to do that, and it allowed us to scale and grow quicker. So it was a great strategy.
Yeah. So how do you approach people at the REIAs? How do you work those relationships? I mean, do you make it a point to get there early and just talk to as many people as possible? How did you develop those relationships and do your connecting there at those REIA events?
So showing up early was a little bit of it, mostly staying late after the fact, because during the REIA, I'm not shy or shameful of anything that I do. So I'm very transparent with everybody, and I get up and talk about the deals I do and have done and challenges I have. And naturally people would gravitate towards me because of that. And it's one of the reasons why I've had some success with acquiring properties is I can talk to people. I like talking to people. I enjoy that part of the business. So I can talk to anybody about anything. It doesn't scare me. It doesn't bother me. And I think people can see that I'm an honest, genuine person and that I truly, care about them and what they're doing. And I think that goes a long way of just having some sincerity. And just like you said, so talking with people, sharing my story, sharing what I'm doing, being real, and then just seeing how I can help them, how I can bring value to them, and then just kind of keeping all those things in the back of my head. Hey, Danny's looking for this. If I find something like that, he's the first guy I'm going to call and see what he says, and if we can work out a deal together. And you just do that enough and build enough of those acquaintances and those connections up, and over time you'll be able to put the pieces together to make it work.
Yeah, that's big. So do you go to one REIA or do you guys have multiple REIAs that you attend?
We only have one REIA in our local market. Now, I co-run that now with another investor here.
Nice. So how many people are typically in attendance?
So we do a monthly meeting, and there's usually in the 20s, 20 to 25. So it's not a large group, but for our area, we're a small market. So that's a lot larger than it used to be. And then we also do a luncheon every Friday. So every week we get together just as an informal meeting. And I've done more deals at the lunch than I have at the actual meeting, just by being there and just talking with people, off the cuff. And it's been very beneficial for us.
Nice. So let me see, what percentage would you say of the people in each meeting are new people?
New to the meeting, I would say 10 to 20%, but we have at least half that come regularly that aren't doing deals, that aren't active. They're maybe taking a little bit of action, but they haven't done their first deal yet.
Right. So do you guys do like motivating talks or help people through to start taking action? Now that I'm asking because you said you were now co-hosting that event or co-running it. And I mean, what's the strategy there? What are you guys doing to help bring people up with you?
Yeah, so every month we cover a different topic. Basically anything to help people in business, and depending on what you're doing and what your strategy is, that month may not apply or may not be as directly, beneficial to you. But we'll cover things like wholesaling. We brought in a real estate attorney because Georgia is an attorney state for closings, and so he was able to break down contracts and legalities around wholesaling and marketing and the whole 9 yards. We brought in real estate agents to talk about doing comps and flips, and I mean really anything and everything, mindset. But yeah, just anything we can to bring benefit. And depending on how the conversations that we have during the meeting and at the weekly events that we do, that kind of tailors what we think we need to start moving towards on topics of discussion.
Nice. So how much time do you think are you spending running that per week? Like, what is your commitment?
Well, luckily the guy that runs it with me, he does a majority of the legwork, sending out the emails and everything. Whenever I'm presenting, I'm going to put in, an hour or 2 hours to get that ready. That's about it. And that's for every other month. We go back and forth.
Oh, nice. And what percentage of your deals would you think are a direct result of being a part of that group?
I think about 10.
10%?
10%. And then not only that, just with being able to find some private money, guys that have, self-directed IRAs and things like that, we've been able to leverage that a lot too.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, hell, if you do like 10% and you like 38 deals this year, I mean, what, like maybe 4 deals, right?
Yeah. I think for networking at that event, we're at 3 or 4. I don't remember exactly, but we're in that range.
Yeah. And it's not the number one reason why you do it. I'm sure it's more just the connecting and, resources you get, like you said, private lenders and all kinds of stuff. How have you been able to get some of these private lenders from the things that you're doing at those events?
It's really just talking to them and then trying to bring value to them first and foremost. I don't go to them looking for money. I go to them with opportunities for deals and things like that. And then the conversations that we have typically will go down towards the financing and things like that. And it allows us to have a conversation pretty openly about what their expectations are and what they have available, because they don't want to do the work. I mean, the guys that have been doing it for a while, they've put the time and the sweat in. They're ready to I want to say kick back and relax, but they're ready to let somebody like me take that responsibility, manage that, deal with the headache, and them, just handle one piece of the puzzle. So
nice. Have you ever had anybody like that was going to do some lending keep you from doing a bad deal?
Yes, indirectly. I try. My goal in real estate is not lose money on anything. Right. So far, knock on wood, I've been good. But whenever I have a question on something, I don't let emotion get in the way. I'll look at a deal very objectively, and then if I have a question about something, whether it's the ARV, whether it's repair cost, anything. If I don't feel good about it for any reason, I'm going to seek out and get that answer, get that solved, be it with contacting my agent, with a home inspection, with another investor who might know the area a lot better than me, just even verifying rent. If it's something like that, I mean, I'm going to cover my bases to make sure that I don't make a mistake. And I mean, I do make mistakes, but the mistakes I make, we either plan for them. There's some unknowns you can't plan for, but we have contingencies in place to absorb some of that. And then, you spread it out over 3, 4, 5 deals. And even you might lose a little more on one or not make as much on one, you're probably going to make it up on the other one. So the aggregate is going to be where you thought it would be.
Yeah. Because you can never be 100% on your estimates of your profit anyway. It's not like you're always going to get that. But what you had said before, I got into the wholesaling part and it taught me that I could get these deals at great numbers and then do whatever I want with them because it's low enough to sell to another investor if I need to, or I could fix it up and make the profit myself, or have something at deeply discounted that I can cash flow, right? And I love that. It's something that we've always kind of stuck with too, because we don't want to be stuck having one exit strategy that could cause us problems, right? If we wanted to, if we got multiple properties, it's going to have to sit there a while. Why not try to wholesale it first and see if we make a ton of money on it, versus it just waiting to be rehabbed, all that kind of stuff. So I love that. I think that's an excellent strategy. And it does force you to be a good marketer or a good, being able to dig up those awesome deals that are out there just waiting to be found, right? And I want to ask, go ahead.
I was just going to go back to your point when you asked about what was taking the massive action and what was that? What did that look like? Mm-hmm. And with the wholesaling, with the marketing, it was really simple. There wasn't anybody in our market that was controlling the market. There wasn't any big players. So we decided just to jump right in and literally mail 3,000 to 5,000 postcards a week, which for some people is nothing. But for our market, that's hitting everything. That's every list. That's, and it's on a 10-week cycle. So, that's leaving no stone unturned just about. And that's what we did to take massive action, to generate a ton of appointments, to get all the low-hanging fruit. And now that we've done that, we kind of realized that the cost per lead and per deal is a little higher than what it needs to be in our area to make it work. So we're changing strategies and kind of changing the business around a little bit to be more efficient.
Yeah, but it got the ball rolling, right? Like it wasn't necessarily at the beginning an issue of what's the best, like what's going to get me this thing dialed in from the get-go, because you don't know until you run numbers and do it in your market and see what
Correct.
happens. And you just jumped in massive action. And I'm sure there was a lot of people out there listening to this that would think, whoa, 3,000 to 5,000 pieces of mail. And you said a week, right? That's not a month. That's per week.
Correct.
And man, I love that. It's numbers, right? It's numbers. How many would you be able to break down from those initial mailings of that size? How many calls you feel like you got, and maybe how many leads and deals you got from each of those?
I can give you estimates. That's one of the things that we're struggling with, is just being able to track numbers. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur at heart, so dealing with numbers and organization and things like that is not my strong suit. So
I've
we're
got
actually
something
looking
for you for that too. So
I cannot wait for Flip Pilot. I'm just saying, we'll leave it at that. I can't wait to see it and learn more about it. So yeah, I'm super excited for that. But I think if I had, like I said, if I had to guess, or average per week for those 3,000 to 5,000, we're going to get about 160 to 175 phone calls coming in.
wow, spread out over like a week.
Yeah, for the whole week. Yeah, I was using a call service because one of the things I found quickly that I didn't like doing, and it wasn't a good use of my time, was answering the phone and calling sellers back. I hated doing it. I love talking in person, and talking on the phone to somebody. I don't know, something about it, anxiety, it just kills me. At least on the volume that we were doing. So I quickly outsourced that to make it more manageable, so I could focus on going on the appointments and getting contracts and building rapport with sellers.
Yeah. Do you mind me asking which call service you were using?
Absolutely. No, I use Call Porter with Ryan and Justin, I think Dossie. And,
Okay.
service has been great. So no complaints there.
Nice. And so with those calls, you got a ton of calls, right? And I'm sure some of those are taking me off your list, stop mailing us. But what number of those did actually became bona fide leads or things where you went on appointments?
Yeah. So once again, I don't have those exact numbers, so I'm going to give you my best guess on them. And I would say if we got about 175 calls in a week, I would go on, at least 10 to 15 appointments. So I'd say, in the 8 to 10% range.
No, that's really good. And that's, how many did you say, 12 to 15 appointments basically?
On an average week, yeah, that's where we would.
And that's like a full-time job right there, going to that many appointments per week. So, and at that point, is that really, that's you've got you were smart, you leveraged your time, or, got that service answering those phones for you, and then you're going on these appointments. Is there anybody else on your team, or is it still you that's doing all the work?
Yeah, there is. So whenever I made a decision to scale, we actually created a partnership here locally with four of us. Two guys basically acting as money guys to help get the business established and running, and myself and another gentleman as the day-to-day operation. So I want to say running the business, but I handled the marketing. I handled everything in the business up into closing, and then the partner that came in on the day-to-day side, he handles all the back end stuff. So once we close on it, he's going to handle the contractors, handle the materials, handle the dispositions process. Just based on what we do, there's a lot of that's pretty time intensive and labor intensive whenever we do our owner financing options. So he's got to do showings and things like that with prospective tenant buyers, and he handles 95% of that. There's obviously a little overlap whenever we need to, but my focus is strictly on keeping the business running, keeping deals coming into the machine, and then trying to get as many contracts and good deals as possible.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. Seems like you're doing what you like to do, and the other people on the team are doing what they like to do, and they're playing to their strengths, right?
That's exactly it.
All right. So tell me about that. You just mentioned that when you guys do the owner financing option. So what are these different types of deals that you're doing right now? You mentioned wholesaling, fix and flip, and you maybe hold some rentals. And so you also do owner financing then?
Correct. So in our market, we have a lot of properties that don't really qualify for flips. They're much better suited for rentals, and there's a high rental demand in our area too. So if we can provide a quality, affordable house for somebody to own that can't qualify for a traditional mortgage, and we've had great success with that. So what we do is, like you said, our first thing we're going to look at, depending on the price point, the property is either going to be a flip or it's going to be a buy and hold. If it's a flip, we're running our numbers just like anybody else would with our ARV, take out all of our cost profits, everything else gets us back to our offer price. Try to do a little bit better than that because sometimes we can't take on another flip, so we want to wholesale it. So we'll get a little bit of a deeper discount with the wholesale, and then that's our acquisition strategy with that. If we're going for buy and hold, same thing. We look at, what's the market rent, where do we need to be to make the numbers work with debt service and everything else within repairs, and it gets us to our offer price. And then once again, we try to get a little bit of a deeper discount in case we decide we need to wholesale it for some reason. Because there's certain areas we don't want to be in, certain types of properties we don't want to maintain. And, really it's the highest and best use of whatever that property and that lead is.
No, that's cool. I like that. And it's really not just trying to do every property that comes the same way, because like you said, not all of them make sense for the different exit strategies. How do you determine which ones, like which part of town you don't want to be in? Like what is the criteria for ones that you just want to sell to another investor?
Yeah. So higher crime, declining property values, just the neighborhood in general itself. If it's really run down, it looks like it's starting to get worse rather than better. School district, the big thing is going to be the crime and just the overall neighborhood condition, as well as the house. There's a lot of 2 bedrooms. We prefer 3, but we'll do 2 if it's in the right neighborhood or if it's the right house. If it's all brick, if it's doesn't need a lot of work on it. Those are the ones that we try to keep, the better ones.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of times the 2 ones are a little bit harder to move. Yeah, so that could be a deciding factor. Right? If it's like a borderline neighborhood where you're like, well, I don't know, but then it's a 2-1, it kind of makes it a no-brainer, right, to wholesale it?
Yep, pretty much. Yeah, it depends on the deal too. I mean, if we get a really smoking hot deal on something, even if it might not be what we normally would keep, we might consider it if we feel the risk is worth it. If not, there's no challenge to sell something at a good price.
Yeah. And you're describing those neighborhoods. I'm thinking of a couple here, and my mind always goes back to the Ron LeGrand Warzone talk, if you've ever listened to his old programs.
I haven't, but I can imagine him. I can imagine what he covered.
Yeah, he'd always say things like, don't go rolling through the war zone wearing lots of jewelry, driving a fancy car.
Yeah, valid points.
Yeah, very valid point. Yeah, there's been some situations that we've faced before driving through some of those neighborhoods. One of my buddies actually had a crackhead try to jump into his truck through the window while he was driving down the street, which is odd, but yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy stuff. That's how you know you're in a bad place, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you can get a feel for that too. I go in places and I don't ever have fear for anything, but I am very aware of the situation. And you can get a feel pretty quick by asking the seller, hey, how's your neighbors? How's the neighborhood? They'll give you their honest opinion more times than they won't. So you can easily get a feel for how things are going if you don't already know that.
Yeah, that's big. That's really big. I remember one time we were looking at this fourplex that was super cheap, and it was like all 3 2s or something. And it was super cheap. I was wondering, well, what's going on with this place? So we drove out there, and the sheriff happened to be there that morning driving through, and we talked to him, say, hey, what's up with the street here? It looks, pretty rough. What's it like? And he showed us the stack of eviction notices was like 5 inches thick. And he's like, do not come over here after dark.
Wow.
He said it was horrible. That's a true war zone. But
yeah, those are the places where, we don't feel our money is safe. And honestly, going back to the private lenders, those guys are going to tell us, like, do you really want to buy something over there? And these are the challenges you're going to face. So if we aren't aware going into something, we learn very quickly what we're getting ourselves into.
Yeah, that's big. With the owner finance stuff, are you doing lease option or owner finance? Or like a land contract?
I'll speak to it the best that I can because once again, my business partner, he handles most of that, but I can give you the basics of it. I think it's like the Mitch Stevens model is pretty much exactly what we're doing, to where we do a contract for deed with all of our properties. And then, so we maintain ownership until the last payment gets made, and then we transfer title over to them at that point. And they're responsible for all maintenance and repairs throughout the process, and they own the property for all intents and purposes. And their monthly payment, is covering taxes and insurance, things like that. So it's very affordable because we keep it at market rent for them. And then basically it gives them the ability to own a property instead of staying in a place. I looked at one yesterday, a property that people have been renting for 13 years. And, they can almost have bought the place at that point.
Right.
And they have done nothing but pay rent. So we give people an opportunity, like I said, who can't, either the properties that they can afford don't qualify for bank financing, or they couldn't qualify for bank financing, but they can qualify financially, and that's what we look at. It's all about the financials of the person. We don't look at the credit score and the credit history, because things happen and people make mistakes. So we don't want to punish somebody for that if they're qualified in all other ways. And we meet them, we shake their hand, and we trust that they're gonna do right. We haven't had any issues yet.
You do get a down payment though?
We do get a down payment. Traditionally, we go for around 10% of the property.
Okay.
For the ones that we fix up, we do sell some stuff that are like handyman specials, let somebody move in and who wants to do some work and get a better deal. So for those, we'll typically do a reduced or no down payment depending on the property.
Right. No, that's cool. I like that. Yeah, the whole pride of ownership really changes the dynamic of all of it. When it's they own the house, they see themselves as owning the house.
Yeah, and we'll do rentals too, but the rentals that we have are just the ones that we purchase. So if I'm going out looking at a property and has a tenant in it, if it's a good deal, we'll buy it and maintain the tenant that's in there and continue to service them as landlords. And then if they ever decide to move out, at that point, we'll decide if we want to keep renting it or if we want to turn it over to owner financing or what we want to do with it.
Right. Nice. So where's all this going? Like you guys you've grown this pretty quick. I mean, how many deals did you do in 2017 roughly?
I've like 3 or 4.
Wow. So yeah, 3 to 4, then to 34 so far this year. What do you think you'll end up by the end of the year?
My goal is 40. But once again, like I said, we're changing our business around and changing our marketing strategy. So I think we're going to have a real big slowdown in the fourth quarter here as we get towards the end of the year. We've also got some pretty heavy flips on our plate that we're trying to work through and get on the market and get sold quickly. So I don't think we're going to hit 40. That was our goal. I think we're going to end up around 37 or 38 by the end of the year. I've got another one that's closing on Friday, so that'll put us at 35. And then I've got another one under contract that should close out at the beginning of November. So we might hit 40, but they're going to be smaller wholesale deals that, not really huge for the bottom line, but they add up.
Yeah, do those wholesales, man. Make it 45.
That's right. That's our goal next year is to continue to scale. So like you said, where are we going? Right now we're looking at how do we grow the business in other directions to complement what we're already doing. Once again, we're in a smaller market and there's not really an opportunity to expand outwards without going virtually to another market. And we may do that. That's not really a focus. So we're looking at things like, maybe getting into property management and maybe doing some construction type stuff, building a team and doing some retail things. Not really sure yet. That's one of those if I had the answers, it'd be a lot better, but we've got to figure it out as we go. We've got to keep an eye on the market too. Right now, things are starting to look like they might be slowing down a little bit potentially in our area, not so much, but I'm trying to stay in tune with what's going on everywhere else. And there seems to be maybe some changes happening, but it's still early. So I'm just trying to keep my finger on the pulse there, listen to podcasts, read the news, and then try to stay up to speed as best we can with what's going on around us.
Yeah, it's interesting that for growth, you're not just looking at the option of going to another market, but expanding into related businesses that support this type of business. And I'm curious, do you know people that have done that sort of thing, that have run, the management company or run the like a construction company to get input on what that's really like? Like, is it worth the time? Is it worth the effort and the risk, right?
So the great thing about talking about networking, once again, if the listeners, if you guys aren't leveraging the resources you have, like Facebook, like Bigger Pockets, you're missing out, because I personally don't know anybody directly, Danny, but I've got numerous people on my friends list that I can correspond with immediately because I follow them and I pay attention to what they do. So I know, I can reach out to them and ask them a question. And if I do it the right way and if I'm tactful about it, more than likely I'll get a response and be able to get the answers that you pose, which are all valid, by the way, and things that we are considering and looking at. Because initially we were looking at opening a brokerage and doing, like actual real estate agents and things like that. And we quickly decided that didn't make sense for us. The numbers didn't make sense. The results or the effort weren't there. So we kind of ruled that one off, and we're looking at some other ones. And you know what? We may do none of them. We don't know yet. That's just we're trying to decide what's the best options for us. We're building a team right now here locally. We've got an office space that we purchased, and you know, we're gonna bring in some staff there. So once we kind of get that part of it up and running, it'll help us better understand what kind of strengths do we have on our team that we can leverage to, and what direction is that going to take us.
Nice. Yeah, it's good. No, I'm glad that you're looking at all those options and considering, you know, what the best route would be, instead of just, you know, changing your criteria of your buying to do more deals, because volume doesn't mean necessarily more profit at the end of the day. And far too many people make that mistake. I wanted to know also the marketing direction, like for your deals. Do you guys have plans or want to try some different types of marketing? What are your ideas for those?
Yeah, absolutely. So once again, postcards work great for us in our market. We have a great response rate. The issue that we had is that, you know, to maintain the deal flow, we were getting a lot of mediocre deals. So we're trying to work on how do we get better deals? How do we get them at a better price too? Because once again, the cost is for me to send a postcard is the same as it costs you to send a postcard. It's the same as the cost somebody in California to send a postcard. So that's a fixed cost based on the number of postcards you're sending out, or mailers, whatever you decide to use. For us, postcards is cheaper, so we could do more. But still, the numbers aren't making a whole lot of sense to where the profit's not there like we need to. So we got two options. You can either increase your sales price on things, reduce your purchase price on them, or reduce your expenses. And all three of those factors are going to impact your overall your profit and your revenue. So we decided to focus on all three of those a little bit. And the easiest one that we could control directly was our marketing costs. So we're actually moving towards cold calling and driving for dollars. There's some great technology with driving for dollars now that you can leverage and send postcards and things like that without having to be so manual about it. And the cost is pretty effective too. And the cold calling, the same thing. I mean, you're controlling, you know, how many people you're calling and how many contacts you're making. And as long as you've got the right systems and processes there, we can spend a third of what we did on direct mail with those other two channels and get probably better results. So I would imagine just with the quality of leads and the rapport going to that first appointment, already having better rapport, or having a more motivated seller.
Nice. Yeah. And I love the fact that you mentioned you are not just looking at trying to find those more leads, but you're saying, well, what we want is profit, right? So it's not the volume of deals, it's the profit that we're getting at the end of the day. And what effects does how we're handling the marketing and where we're spending the money, and then also in our business, how quickly we're moving these properties, how much we're selling them for, all that stuff plays into it, right? And if you can adjust those parts of your business, you can effectively do more deals. You made more profit, which is like doing more deals without having to do more deals. And you know, like I said before, it's always this tease of Flip Pilot, but that's like what we build it for, right? We have those numbers in the dashboards and KPIs so that you can see all that stuff and then know where to tweak and whether what you're tweaking is making a difference. So I'll share with people the link for that in just a minute. What I wanted to discuss real quick with you to end out the show. It's been a great show, by the way, Lee. Thanks for being on. Or what are you doing to improve yourself? Like, are you doing any kind of things to grow as a person, a business owner?
Absolutely. So we actually just got back from a wholesaling conference in last week, and that was what spurred us to make the changes in our business. Because basically, when we started the partnership earlier in the year, our goal was to break the machine. It was let's throw as much in there as we can. Let's put as much fuel on the fire as possible, and just see what happens, and then make adjustments and changes as we need to, to make an improvement and make it better. And we went through about 4 or 5 months of that and had success. But there's opportunities to make improvements, and that's what we're doing now. Is we know what we're good at, we know what we struggle with, we know where the opportunities are, we know where we need to make improvements on other options, and So that's the one thing I do is try to go to at least 1 or 2 classes a year, seminar type events, conferences, whatever it is. I'm looking at, I don't give plugs or whatever, but Justin Williams in the 7-figure flipping program, that's probably our next avenue that we're trying to go towards once we kind of get our business stabilized and make it more of a thriving business where we need to take it to the next level. But that's where we're going to go. I mean, definitely some type of a mastermind at all times, some type of educational experience and network and leverage with the people. And then once again, going back to the weekly lunches that we do, the monthly meetings that we do, staying on Facebook, staying in the groups on Facebook, the Flip Pilot group, things like that. I'm going to keep immersing myself in that. And then not only that, you've got books and podcasts and audio books. I mean, once again, the resources are there for anybody that wants to be successful. So not having the knowledge is just an excuse that can easily be conquered very quickly. Now, initially, sure, I don't have the knowledge. Where do I go? Well, ask somebody like yourself, and you can say, well, start here, read this book, go to here, do this, go to this class, take this course, whatever. And if somebody would just do that, that would get them moving in the right direction. And then a lot of those other answers will come, and then the opportunities will come, and they just have to continue to take action and be a good person. If you're not a good person, nobody's going to work with you. But if you're a good person, you attract other people like that, and people want to see you succeed. So I try to surround myself with people that have my best interest at heart, and same thing, I want to see them succeed as well.
Yeah, brilliant, man. You've grown like crazy from last year to this year, and you're not resting on that. Like you're going after it. And I recommend Justin's group. I love that group. Highly recommend that. And it's just great to hear. I mean, it sounds like it's really inspiring. You're on track to keep going and growing and not just do more deals, but do better deals and do more profitable deals.
That's thanks to guys like you, Danny. I mean, once again, I have to say I'm honored to be here. I'm truly am. It's a blessing to be on this podcast. And, I want to thank you for going on Bigger Pockets back in the day when you did, because that's how I found you, which is how I found Lead Propeller, which is the website that I use. And I love, by the way. I mean, awesome. I know it's a great product, and I can't wait for Flip Pilot to go with it. And then that's how I found Don Costa. That's how I found Justin Williams. And just the value that you guys and the whole group has given to the community for free is phenomenal. So, thank you for that. Thank you for what you've done. I've listened to every one of your podcasts, and I've taken a lot away from it. I've learned a lot in my business that I've been able to apply, not only to make me money, but to help me not lose money too, which is the equally as important part.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, it's awesome to hear that it's made an impact, and it's, why we do it, and sharing all that information and getting it out there, mainly so I just don't forget all of it. But I learned from all of you guys, and that's also why I do this. It's like you guys, inspire me and have all this great information, and I learned from all of you, and I've learned from this episode, like the stuff that you've shared with connecting with people, and I'm sure it's going to help a lot of people out there listening too to get their start and motivating them. So thanks again for being on the podcast. And if anybody listening wants to reach out to you, how can they do that?
The best thing is on Facebook. You can just search for Lee Taylor, I would imagine. Or also you can go Bigger Pockets. I'm there as well. And my website is randlemanpropertysolutions.com. It's a mouthful, so it's RANDLEMAN propertysolutions.com.
Awesome. And we'll put that in the show notes page for you as well, to link over to your site. And again, awesome. Keep in touch, and looking forward to hear what you do through the end of this year and into next year. So keep in touch.
Thanks, Danny.
Thanks, Lee.